Previously on the Seventh Valkyrie, the Machine King's darksteel battlecraft emerges from the ocean, bringing with it the final guest for the evening, Kyrie Krona. The fate of Rene hangs in the balance, next on the Seventh Valkyrie. Chapter 29. At the Stroke of Midnight. The 21st day of winter. Meridia. To the north of the bay, the Edoran Navy patrolled in their heavily manned battlecraft, illuminated by glowing white phosphor battle lamps that matched those ringing each level of the new city, one of the world's great architectural wonders. To the south, the battle lines of the Freelanders wove intricate webs of light, cast by gifts along wave runners, cruisers, and battlecraft of their own. Beyond them, the glow of the four family forces was echoed by the smoldering colors of fire, ice, earth, water, and wind, which bloomed out into the night from old city denizens along the twisting streets, winding tunnels, and hanging bridges of their rugged coast. But as the wind picked up off of the ocean, sending the barge straining against its anchor, there was one guest left to arrive. The silence ticked on, and when the clouds returned across the moon, the chain fell silent, and the bells began to toll out the 12 chimes of midnight. Something moved beneath the surface, and as the bells fell silent, the prow of a darksteel battlecraft emerged from the sea, just beyond the barge, emblazoned with the shining silver infinite gears of the Machine King. As the rank-and-file soldiers on the water retreated from the rising craft, their weapons and lamps and gifts alight, only the families and command remained unsurprised. And that was enough to draw Meridia's attention away from her razor focus on the four families to watch the arrival of the hulking battlecraft, which was unlike anything in any known war fleet. The Machine King's flagship had a blunt, snubbed nose that widened out along the first third of the craft like the head of a spade, with sputtering, spitting exhaust ports on each side. The craft's body was bulky, nearly half the size of the barge, yet it was entirely smooth, other than the occasional night glass porthole that dotted each ventral side of the vessel down to the aft. At the back of the craft, there were two more spitting exhaust ports, one on each end, and a third at the center, split out like the trisected fin of some massive whale. Even before the seas around the flagship had calmed, there was a great ringing and a crash, the twin sounds of aero and earth impacting on the darksteel hull and sliding away into the water. It was the result of nervous soldiers on both sides, firing at first instinct at the strange metallic beast. There were two more uncertain volleys, right in quick succession, but before the men could descend into panic, there was a burst of shouted commands from both sides of the bay, relaying out among the front lines to hold. The silence returned, bloodshed held back by the unwavering nerve of four family leaders and Edoran commanders. And soon the only sound that remained was the crash of waves against the battlecraft's hull, as it began to glide gently across the water towards the barge. Any faster than that gentle glide, and it might have been impossible to hold back some soldiers from firing on the craft. To many Edorans, vessels like these were only a scary story, an oft-disbelieved war myth that the thwarts had battlecraft that could travel under the water and strike like the beasts of the deep. Sure, there had been some naval spotters and fishermen in patrol boats that had spoken about faint glimpses at vessels traveling under the water, and to Meridia's knowledge, a handful had even been recovered and studied. But those had only been one- or two-man surveillance teams and modified wave runners, which had led Edoran intelligence to suggest that underwater travel was only an evasive tactic, and the thwarts were limited to short periods under the surface. This wouldn't have been the first time Edoran intelligence was wrong. In fact, it often was, which was one of the challenges of the vast, unstudied world far beyond their borders. But shock and awe was not a uniquely Edoran response. Even the most seasoned and well-traveled Zestra navigator couldn't have dreamed of a vessel like this one. For a battlecraft this size, to travel undetected straight into the heart of a blockaded and patrolled bay with 1,000 eyes on the land, sky, and water, that was far-fetched even to the Freelanders. As the snub-nosed of the darksteel battlecraft touched the barge, there was a great thunk, hiss, and whirring of gears as the craft locked into place. Then, it began to unfold its seamless front panels down into a gangplank, which slammed down, opened up like the maw of a giant sea beast. Then, from deep within, came the heavy, yet delicate, deliberate footsteps of a tall, thin man with silver hair, clad in deep black clothes intercut by fine lines of silver. In what was surely a trick of the light, the silver flowed like living veins as he walked, and congealed above his neck into a shining, full-face mask with a blank expression. As he set foot on the barge with an echoing step, from the darkness behind him came 24 soldiers in perfect rank, each with half-smiling, half-frowning masks, and none wielding any obvious weapons. But one and all, they were draped in mottled cloaks of a strange, shifting fabric that unsettled the eye and melded into the night. And it wasn't just the Eterans who couldn't identify what exactly was hidden behind those cloaks. Over the sound of approaching boots, there were quick murmurs all across the family side of the barge. It was clear to anyone with the sense that the Machine King's men included high-level gifted, brimming with enough power to turn the tide of any conflict. But the nature of their power, and even which individuals had gifts, was impossible to pinpoint. That was dangerous, more dangerous than anything the families had expected. Yet for now, no hands ran to weapons, and no gifts ignited as Krona strode into the light of the Eteran torches. He scanned the assembled leaders of the four families and the Eteran command, then glanced out to the naval forces on both sides of the barge. With a nod, the Machine King murmured something to the faceless soldier waiting at his left hand, who reached beneath their cloak. Like the tension of a bowstring suddenly pulled taut, both armies shifted in preparation, only to find the Machine King handed a shield of some sort. Or rather, not a shield. Flipping the mass of metal, he grabbed it with both hands, unfolded it with a click and a snap, and placed the newly assembled chair backwards, in the exact center of both tables. With all eyes on him, he sat down in the chair, shifting it around on the surface of the barge to get comfortable, and then propping up an elbow and looking blankly at the two groups. After a moment of silence, Krona shrugged and gestured for them to continue. Family leaders and the Eteran command both seemed uncertain, but Yosun was the first to speak.
Oh, quite the entrance, Krona. Or is that even you under the mask? I've had enough insults dealing with your pawns, and I won't have that disrespect on the day of our great victory.
After a brief conferral, the female leader of the Ravens of Dusk spoke in Uveran, offering a more playful challenge, asking if he had truly come on his own, rather than working from the shadows like he always did. At the twin challenges in 2 languages, Krona giggled and sat back, leaning on his chair and then rocking it forward before letting it settle.
I hope you don't mind if I speak in Eteran, family representatives, he said in a smooth voice. I know that it's not quite as beautiful as some of the free languages, but as a lingua franca to appease the Eterans, I find it far more helpful. And plus, I'd hate to waste time repeating myself on such an important stage. After all, I rarely make public appearances.
He reached a hand up to his mask, pressing 4 points on it that made the seamless metal hiss and click. He then slid the mask off his face, revealing one wearing and clicking metal eye and one biological one of intense violet. With a shake of his head, he let out his long silver hair, folded the mask up with a series of swift, intricate movements, and then stowed it under his cloak. "Surprised I came myself?" he asked, as he began the process of removing his gloves. He revealed first a hand of flesh and blood, and second, a smooth, living arm made of shining steel. "Well, maybe I'm surprised too. I usually am so careful, but you all must understand there are some moments in life that are important enough. You have to be there yourself, not just hear a report secondhand." When he had finished removing his gloves, he stored them beneath his coat, flexing his metal and organic digits in an elegant ripple before crossing both hands beneath his chin and settling in with a smile. "Now, let's get down to business, shall we? Get everything out in the open after so many months of lies and deceit. First off, I'll just be clear, you both knew I was coming, which is why I'm sitting here and no one's attacked yet. Oh sure, I sense a few murderous gazes from Eterans and Freelanders, you both hate me equally, but overall, you people of Rene really rolled out the welcome wagon." "I'd suggest you tread lightly, Krona." You'd be surprised how difficult that is when you're made of metal," Krona said, ticking one finger against his metal eye socket. "Though it is a pleasure to meet you at last, Commander. Sorry for the delay, but you must understand, I'm really busy, and I don't have time to handle all the little details like you do." Yosin breathed in to fire back for the insult, but Krona had already turned to the families. "And to the families. Well, I've read your codes, and they dictate that I should be drawn and quartered and fed to the pigs for what I've done. What made you disgrace your ancient laws to talk to little old me?" Now it was the turn of the speakers to rise in response. But Krona turned away, cackling as the Freelanders talked over each other, then shared brief glances of frustration and settled. They were trying to regain their composure, and Krona returned his head to his hands, silver eye glinting one way, violet eye the other. He was devouring every moment, every angle. You're both calming down quicker than I expected. Remembering the reports from your spies, aren't you? That with a word I can turn you to dancing against each other, that I savor the theater of it all, and that your slightest slip-up can twist you turning. I'm sure all of your advisors have told you that you're better off not speaking until the moment's right, or until I've given you what I promised you. And, oh boy, have I promised a lot that I cannot deliver." He turned back to the Eterans. "Let's start with you. Now, of course, you know that I've always had relationships with the four families. Your iron rule tends to make strange bedfellows, after all. But the old city has always been off-limits to me. That makes it a bold declaration of my power to step into the city, and even bolder to kidnap members of the pit staff and hang them up on display. It really was a fantastic show. I wish you could have gotten to see it, but... no, you probably would have gotten mad that I slaughtered all your men and all those missing travelers to create it. And that's if you weren't already mad enough after I set up the prison break. Humiliating, maddening, I'm sure. I can see your teeth gritting, Yosin. But you see, Master Commander, that I had to gain their trust, those animals in the old city. It was a small sacrifice to show the families that I was beyond Eteran control, and it worked swimmingly, didn't it? My men delivered you an opening on the night of the festival. You struck at the heart of the old city. You built mountains of bodies, drew rivers of blood, and now I've delivered you the leaders of the four families ripe and ready for execution. I mean, you should be thanking me. In fact, thank me. Say thank you. Right now, say it.
Both of his eyes now fell to Yosin, who spoke through gritted teeth.
I'll have my men send you a gift basket. Can we get on with our arrangement?
I want to thank you first. From you, Yosin, not any of your people. I want it from you.
You can deep-throat my saber if you'd like. I'll hunt you down as soon as I'm done with them in their city.
Yosin turned, looking at the heads of the 4 families, speaking proudly in Edarin.
This here is your last chance to surrender without blood, Thwarps. Well, with a little bit of blood. If you do not submit, the full force of the Machine King and the Edarin army will descend on your city, and there will be no quarter. Do you understand me, you filthy fucking animals? The Spectre works for me tonight, and if you do not bow, my men will kill every man, woman, and child until that warren you call a city burns under the glorious Edarin sky.
He stood up, both hands on the table.
So, what will it be? Either way, you will die, but will you murder your city along with it? I know what the honorable choice would be. Perhaps even you animals have heard of that concept.
Hey there. If you're hearing this, it means you're listening to the public version of this episode. I appreciate you taking the time and your interest in the series. It really helps the algorithm, it helps us grow. But if you are enjoying the show, maybe take a look over at our Patreon. We have uncut versions of the early episodes, access to new chapters before they're released for the general public, and you can shape the future of the series by deciding on new merch drops, bonus content, and more. You can get started for free at patreon.com/Seventh Valkyrie. That's patreon.com/7THVALKYRIE. Hope to see you there.